Grows podcast. I am your host, Ken Joslin, and we have got a treat today. We do this podcast to help business leaders build confidence, gain clarity, and create community. I've got my good friend, Daniel Gomez, executive coach, keynote speaker, corporate trainer, podcast of the year recipient, and an unbelievable friend and a man of faith. Daniel, what's up, my friend?
And Ken, I'll tell you what, I'm ready to rock and roll. I was looking forward to this since yesterday. I even took some extra Tylenol and vitamins today just to be on your show, man. Ready to drop some massive value, brother. Woo! Come on.
Come on, man. Come on, man. Well, listen, number one, thanks for making it today. I know you were a little bit under the weather, got a little head cold. And thanks for sucking it up, taking a little Tylenol, getting some extra vitamin C and all those things in you to be able to make it today. Take just a minute, Daniel, and let everybody know a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and some of the things that you've got going on right now.
Well, Daniel Gomez Inspired is my brand. And I'll tell you, for over 20 years, I ran multi-million-dollar corporations. And I was doing good, really, really well. But I'll tell you what, God has a way of retuning and reshaping and taking you down a different path that he has for you. And 4 years ago, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I'll tell you, I had to make the decision of what I was going to do. And the best decision I ever made was really just to really retire from corporate America, take care of my wife. And in that journey, man, God says, guess what? I want you to be a motivational speaker, Ken. And everybody laughed at me. But I'll say this, you never realize God's always up to something, right? In those years that I was running automotive dealerships, making a lot of money, I would always do the sales meetings. And in doing that, I was motivating the team, inspiring the team, training the team, coaching the team, but I never realized I was actually doing it because you just do it sometimes out of habit. And when I took a step back and I really just was on my recliner, my wife was getting over her double mastectomy breast cancer surgery. She was on the couch literally downstairs for about 2 months. I took a look in the mirror, Ken, and I said, wow, I need to change. Because I didn't realize how much junk I had inside of me. But I realized that even though I knew business very well, I understand business, I understand financials. The roadblock that was keeping me from going to the next level was me, Ken. And that's what I love doing in my executive and business coaching is really helping people get through those failures, defeats, the shame, the guilt, especially as men, right? I mean, let's be honest, right? Men out there, they joke about it. Yeah, man, I got a side chick, side hustle, and they got this and that. And but all that stuff weighs you down and it keeps you from being the person that you were created to be. So who Daniel Gomez is I'm a loving father. I love my wife. God is my CEO of my business. We've doubled in 2020 and 2021, and we're off to a great 2021, 22 here. But I say this because you got to be real. So many people try to put a front out there and be something they're not. And just be you, man, because God gave you the gifts, right? The word says your gift will make room for you. And when you just operate in your gift, when you realize that I don't have to be Ken, I don't have to be Ed Milet, I don't have to be anybody, just Daniel Gomez Inspires, man, you attract the people that need to be in your circle like yourself. And God takes care of the rest. So that's who I am. I love talking about business. I'm a motivational speaker. I've had the opportunity to share the stage with Les Brown and Tom Bilyeu. And I realize this, Ken, and I'll end with this and I'll let you, is my voice is going to reach people that even the top motivational speakers will never reach. Because there's an audience out there for me that are maybe Hispanic, Latinos that need to know that, guess what? It's not where you start in life, but it's where you finish.
Yes, I love that. Hey, talk to me real quick you talked about your wife's breast cancer diagnosis, double mastectomy, and that kind of coincided with you looking and realizing, hey, there's some things in my life that need to get in alignment. Obviously, both of us are men of faith. I spent 12 years in full-time vocational ministry, pastoring and planting churches. There's probably 3 days a week I wake up in the morning and I've got an audio text from you. You're praying for me. And I was telling some friends this week that I love this guy. I love his heart for people. But walk me through some of the things that you had to face, because you were talking about there were some internal things in you. Walk our audience through some of the things that you had to walk through and literally face when you looked yourself in the mirror, and how you walked through those and grew and overcame some of those deficiencies or things in your life that were holding you back.
Well, the big word that comes to mind right now that really pisses me off when I hear young entrepreneurs and people say is the word excuses.
Mm.
We make excuses for everything, Ken, everything. And I say this because that was Daniel Gomez Inspires. It came to the headway where I had to stop making excuses. And let me explain, because my back was against the wall, right? My back was right here. And I had only one freaking way to go, and that's forward, because my wife had just had a double mastectomy. There was no guarantee that she was going to make it, but a missed, right? Regardless of what was going on in my wife's health, I said, I'm going to make this shit happen with God's grace. So I didn't have, I parallel, right? Just think of this. There's a parallel lane. My wife, 8 major surgeries. Daniel starting this business. What are the odds of it really surviving? I would say people would say, you're stupid, you're crazy. Why even attempt it? But that gave me the motivation, because it came to the point where Daniel had to stop making excuses.
Right.
And when I really came to that conclusion, Ken, that if this is really going to work, I need to get out of my own way. And that's what it really was all these things that had happened in my life. I stopped the excuses. I stopped making excuses of why I would go out there and do this, or why I would lead this way, or why I was this person. I would, the word is this, I would justify why I was doing the things I was doing. And then of course you make excuses with that, and you end up still stuck in the same rut. So when somebody tells me, well, I can't afford this, or I can't do this, or this is against me, it's an excuse, because they don't see the potential in themselves. And I had to really see that, yes, I was great at business, but I was made for so much more.
Right.
But I didn't have a choice just to go forward.
What were some of the things, like in your wife's diagnosis, her walking through that process? Do you remember the moment where it kind of, you had that aha light bulb moment where you were like, I've got to grow from this?
I think it was when my wife's not a woman of a lot of words. I'm the extrovert, the extrovert, as y'all can tell, but I could tell she was really scared. And I realized that I had to stop being selfish and man up and be the man that I was created to be. And what I mean by that is, so many times you don't realize we take our wives for granted. We take our family for granted. And I think that was a moment when I just saw that moment of like, because my son at the time was 17 years old. What if she would have died? I know my mom passed away when I was 10. It triggered me back to when I was a little kid. I was like, fudge, man. Like, I know what it's like to be an orphan, because I lost both my mom and dad, but I was 10 when I lost my mom. And it just really, when I saw that look in her eye and she talked about the kids, it broke my heart. And I said, I need a freaking, like, no excuses. What excuse? And it stunk, because this is the truth, is because we all have these belief systems. We all have this programming in our minds. And dude, I broke shit. I kicked the recycling bin because there was so much frustration that I was pushing through. And I'm just being real, right? Yeah. But when it comes to the point where there's no excuses, you got to make it, because you got to help your wife make it. You got to help your family stay together. All those demons that were inside of me, all those skeletons that were inside of me, like, dude, I was like, it's like I had a freaking excavator, and all this history was coming up of the things that I was ashamed of, and the guilt and the failures and all this. And even though I had the Corvettes and the Rolexes, that's great on the surface, which a lot of people have. But it's when you go down into the deep shit that you really say, man, I need to change a lot of things.
Let me ask you a question. So your back is against the wall. Your wife's got breast cancer, double mastectomy. You're dealing with, obviously, with her. You're seeing that's bringing up a lot of old trauma and things in your heart. A lot of people would look at that, and dude, they would just stick their head in the sand. I mean, that's a hard place to come out of. What would you say to our audience, Daniel, were a couple things that you put into practice in your life to help you each and every day climb out of the place that you were in?
First of all, Ken, you have to forgive yourself. Most people never really take the effort and the time to really forgive themselves. I remember this was about almost a year after her first surgery, and we were in bed, and we were watching TV or something, and I started crying out of the blue. And she's like, "What's wrong?" I was like, "I don't know." Just started thinking of how much of a failure I was as a leader sometimes in the organizations I led. Because I would lead from a point sometimes of benefiting Daniel instead of really, I always took care of my employees, but I knew I could have done a lot of things better. And this was a year later. And I just really had to forgive myself. The mistake that we make sometimes is we come to the idea that I forgive myself once and I'm okay. No, there's always a deeper level of forgiveness. So I would say first, forgive yourself. And then the second thing is you need to tell yourself affirmations, positive self-talk, like that. The word of God says life and death is in the power of the tongue. And I think that there was a part of me that felt that I wasn't worthy or deserving. And there's many people that I've met in my business coaching that their businesses, they sabotage it because they don't feel that they're worthy or deserving of that next level of success. You have to really tell yourself, right? This affirmation. I would say this every day. I still say it today. I am enough. I am worthy and deserving of God's best. And this is a huge one right here, right? And for me, my name was Daniel. So this is the affirmation I would say is Daniel is loved and accepted by God. And I say those, probably every day, man. There's days that, of course, I don't do it, but for most of the part, 5 out of 6 days out of the week, I'm saying, I am enough. I am worthy and deserving of God's best. And Daniel is loved and accepted by God.
I love that. I've got, affirmations are something we talk a lot about at GSD in our community. I talk a lot about those in my book. For those of you guys watching live on Facebook, there's my planner. I have 4 affirmations. We have a section every day for your gratitude and your affirmations. And I have 4 affirmations, and 2 of mine speak to what you're talking about. One of my affirmations is I am enough because I am his child. Like, it's not based. I used to say this all the time when I pastored the church. God's love for you isn't predicated on your performance. He loves you because you're his child, not because of what you do for him or what you don't do for him. So and let me back up just a little bit, because you said this earlier. The first thing you needed to do is to be able to forgive yourself. And I'll say this to some of you guys listening today. The way you go, well, how do I know if I'm good at forgiving myself? I ask you this question. How good are you at forgiving other people? Because if you don't forgive other people well, it's the root of it is because you don't forgive yourself well. And then the root even further than that is because you don't understand what you've been forgiven of. I am enough because I am his child. One of my other affirmations is, since we're talking about this, and this is one of the main things to help you really find healing and get whole in your heart. One of my affirmations is I am whole. I choose to use past pain to help others find healing. Like the stuff that I went through as a kid, the stuff I went through. Parents got divorced when I was 8. I moved 6 different times growing up. I went to 12 different schools in 12 years. I went to 6 high schools, like literally just transient all the way up until I went in the Air Force. And then even in the military for the 3.5, 4 years I was in the military, still transient, still moving. But those are 2 of my affirmations. When that happened with your wife, you said it was a year later and you were laying in bed and you just started to cry, thinking about some of those things. Talk to us about that process. When did you start to feel in your own heart like, I'm turning the corner, I'm gaining some momentum?
I would say when all this started, I had a heart of stone. I couldn't see it though. I didn't care.
What does that mean? Explain that. When you say heart of stone, like our audience is here. Tell me what does that mean to you when you say that, Daniel?
Like I couldn't, the bottom line is I didn't care. I didn't care about anybody's emotions, anybody's feelings. If they didn't like it, guess what? There's a door. That was my attitude. Some of it maybe was from the car business, right? Just, hey, right? If they don't like it, they can go get a gig somewhere else. And I think I carried that with me, and just the hurt and the pain that I had built up, because we've all been, right? We've all been backstabbed. We've all been hurt by a friend, and then just, we suppress it. But the bottom line is I didn't care. I had a heart of stone. And I think I didn't realize that I was taking that crap home. And it really came to me when we were coming. I remember the day. There was a song by Micah Taylor. We were coming up to the stop sign. And it said, God, I want to be different. And I remember putting up to the stop sign and I was just crying. And I said, God, I want to be different. Because that machismo, that excuse my language, that fuck it attitude, it just was, it wasn't who I wanted to be anymore. And I think that moment I cried, I got home and my wife was, what's wrong? And I was like God just, I allowed God to come into my heart and just touch my heart because I didn't want to be that angry person anymore.
Mm.
Because I was always like angry. I didn't care. We go somewhere and then, like somebody would say something and I would check them, right? Like, what, you got a problem or what? Like, what did I do to you? Right. I mean, I didn't care. That was my demeanor. And that's how I walked around. But I realized that my son was kind of like becoming that way. And I didn't want that for him.
One of the things, I've got 4 daughters, and one of the things that I've always heard, and one of the things that I've said a lot is that the issues that we refuse to deal with as parents in our life will get passed down, or have more of a propensity to get passed down into the lives of our children. So your wife, breast cancer, it kind of, obviously that's a gut punch. Double mastectomy, you're going, okay, I've got to change. Like, it really exposed and revealed some things in your heart, and you started working and walking through the process. Talk about the light at the end of the tunnel. Talk about when you started to come out of that, you started to realize that you were growing like that.
Well, I think for me, my relationship with my kids got so much better with my wife. And my son's always been my biggest advocate, even
Mm.
though he probably was mad at me for just for being dad the way dad was. But he told me something here actually this past year. He says, Dad, he says, there was a time that when he went off to college as a freshman, he didn't want to come home. And he goes, now I want to come home.
Mm.
And I said, well, what happened? He goes, I can't explain it. And I said and I said, well, do you think maybe it's because my heart's different? He goes, well, now I can talk to you. So
Mm.
I guess the big thing is prior to my heart being a heart of stone, the word that comes to mind is I was unapproachable. And now I'm approachable.
So that would
Now,
be another thing for guys. So people that are out there that go, do I forgive? Because some people don't understand. I don't forgive myself well, and I think that's another symptom of not forgiving yourself well, is you're not approachable.
yes.
Because somewhere in our subconscious, we think to ourselves, well, if you knew me, I'm not happy with me. I can't forgive myself. So if you really knew what was going on in my heart, you wouldn't like me and you wouldn't be able to forgive me either.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, that's the way to say it because it's like a defense mechanism, right? Like it's like I didn't want to hear what they had to say because I didn't take the time to care what they thought or to
Mm.
really care about them to say. And now my son, like they see now prior to say 5 years ago, I was always telling them what to do and telling them my daughter. But now it's like I don't tell them anything and they just see how I behave. And guess what? My son, he's doing amazing at school. My daughter, she's gonna get her master's. But they see that dad, right? Because they this is the truth. When I came home and I said, well, I think I'm gonna really just start this business. My daughter goes, well, it's another fad dad's going through.
Mm.
Right? It's
Mm.
another fad. It's just another activity. He'll get over it. He's gonna be the same. But when they see that, now I really right, like when me and my wife would go out to eat, I'll still open the door for her. We still hold hands, and it's like they see the real love that I have for their mother, and they see the fact that it's like I'm not selfish like I used to be selfish anymore. And they see that I care about my customers and right because I have my room open, my studio open, and they hear my sessions sometimes, but they see the difference in me and then they see the success that we've had. And I'm like, you gotta, I say, guys, look, I'm not gonna tell you anymore. You gotta give and tithe. You're already over 21 years old.
Right.
If you want your business or your career to be blessed, you gotta give 10% to God.
Let
I mean,
me,
there's no
yeah.
question about it.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question real quick. Because one of the things you said right there, I think is pivotal for people that are in a spot and they're in a tough, they're in a rut. They're like, they can't seem, they take 2 steps forward, 4 steps back, 5 steps forward, 10 steps. They just can't seem to gain momentum. When you have momentum, the impossible seems possible. When you don't have momentum, even the possible seems impossible. But you said this, you used the word selfish. I stopped thinking about me and I started doing things for other people. That is so hard for people to do when they're stuck because they want to put all their momentum, all their resources, all of their strength in helping them get unstuck. How did you changing your mindset and going, you know what, I'm going to focus on other people. I'm going to focus on helping other people and their issues. How did that help you get unstuck?
Well, it was good. I think one of the big breakthroughs that we had as a family was, I remember a couple of Thanksgivings ago, we didn't have a Thanksgiving. I said, look, God put this on my heart. If y'all want to join me and mom, great, right? I didn't tell them they had to. I said, we're going to go to HEB and buy these lunches, and we're going to go out and feed the homeless for Thanksgiving. And they're like, for real? They're like, we're not having Thanksgiving. I was like, yeah. They're like, cool, let's do it, right? They bought in.
Yeah.
So we had these old hampers, right? These old baskets for for clothes. And, we had a little assembly line. We started making sandwiches, and then we'd give out these Nutri-Grain bars and a bottle of water. And I think we made like 150 lunches that just us four.
Mm-hmm.
And we went out and drove all over San Antonio for like 2.5 hours, and we gave out 100 something lunches. And they saw that, and it was like, wow, right? So they saw the fact that there was a shift in that, and I think for me, they see it, right? Like, I always carry cash with me, so whenever I fell down, I always like, right here, bless them, give somebody money, and they see me when I give somebody, whether it's $20 or $100 bill. It's not about the money; it's about what God puts in your heart. Because for me, whenever I fell down, I love to bless people because I know that I'm not being selfish. It forces me not to be selfish.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest, sometimes it's not easy when God says, give this person $100. It's like, well, God, but do they really need it? But it's not for us to judge. It's just for God to really see what's in your heart. And my kids see this, and I see how loving my kids are. But on the flip side of that, I'll tell you, when you don't forgive yourself, like when you're not approachable, this is a huge problem for men, Ken, right here. Is they can't receive what God has for them. They can't receive. So if you can't receive in one area of your life, you're not receiving in your business because you're blocking yourself from receiving. And they say, oh no, it's just part of my job. No, like you're wondering why your business is struggling. It's because you're not receiving that next level of success for you. And that's what's hindering, because you haven't forgiven yourself for stuff that you've done in the past.
I love that. So you walked through this season. How long ago has it been since your wife had breast cancer?
It's actually a little bit over 4 years. A little bit over 4 years.
A little bit over 4 years. So the last 4 years, you've been walking through this process, came out on the other side. Obviously, you're doing some incredible things. Wrote a book. Talk to us real quick about your book.
You were born to fly right here. You were born to fly. It's about personal development. And then we have a sales book right here, Sticker Shock, the day you realize you're worth millions. Most people don't sell anything because they undervalue who they are. So Sticker Shock, if you're in sales, go to Amazon, get this one to help your sales career. And then You Were Born to Fly is really just a personal development to really help you build up your confidence and make you that person that God created you to be.
You said that first book, you said most people don't understand their value, which is another reason most people don't forgive themselves the way they should, because they don't feel like they're worthy of being forgiven. Yes. And then therefore they don't give forgiveness to other people. And forgiveness is a huge thing. You've heard this, I've heard this, I've said it on a Sunday before. When we hold unforgiveness against someone else, it's like us drinking rat poison and expecting the other person to die. Like, it only affects the person that harbors that unforgiveness. And a lot of time that unforgiveness can be with yourself. So you've got 2 books, dude. You're doing some amazing things, helping business owners. We're 3 weeks away, dude. 3 weeks from today, we're going to be in Atlanta, Georgia, for our Create conference, the #1 entrepreneur conference in the Southeast, with a few hundred of our best friends, Dr. John Maxwell, Jesse Itzler, Craig Siegel, Dave Meltzer, Anthony Trucks, Jen Gottlieb, Randy Garn, Brent Gove, Ivan Ans. Dude, we've got an unbelievable lineup of entrepreneurs and leadership experts from around the world. Why should someone invest today in themselves to make sure they're in Atlanta, January the 28th and 29th?
You're the best investment that you will ever make is in yourself. That's the best investment. You have to invest in yourself. I'll tell you this, Ken, I myself, since I started this journey over 4 years ago, I've invested over $100,000 in me. And a big part of that investment was putting myself in rooms where people were bigger than me. And I'll tell you that when you connect with people that are where you want to go, the road is easier. Your mindset shifts. your heart changes. And not only that, you meet people that really love and care about you that don't, because I think this is what happens. Right now, somebody's struggling and you're not changing your environment. So the number one key why you need to come to Growth Stack Drive in Atlanta here coming up in a couple of weeks is because when you put yourself in an environment where people really want to pour into you and add value to you, that's where your life's going to change. Because if you don't, you can go, right? We can read all the books we want.
Yeah.
But if you go back to the same environment and nothing changes, then nothing changes. But if you put yourself in a different environment, like Growth Stack Drive, it's like, wow. Like you said, John Maxwell, Jesse Itzler, yourself, all these people that really, really, really add value, you're going to come back. Your heart's going to be changed, first of all, because I've been blessed enough to be with John Maxwell many, many times. But the second thing is this, is that when you put yourself in a room, like you always say, with people that are bigger than you, your mind just expanded. A mind expanded never retracts to its original size.
That's good. One of the things too, we met in Miami at a good friends conference back in September. I think it was October.
September, yes.
We met down there. Floyd Mayweather, Ian Smith, Brandon Dawson from Cardinal Ventures. I got to speak there. I emceed the event. One of the things I said throughout that event, I had to have said it a half a dozen times. Do you remember what it was?
You need to put yourself in rooms with people that are bigger than you.
And not only get in rooms with people who think bigger than you, but if you leave this weekend and you don't have 5 to 10 phone numbers from other business leaders and entrepreneurs in this room, you have wasted your investment. If you came just to hear Floyd Mayweather, which Floyd was fantastic. Ian Smith, fantastic. All the speakers that we had were fantastic. Rich the Kid, everybody was great. But the reality of it is, if you don't walk out of that room with new relationships and new partnerships and new people to help sharpen that iron sharpening iron, if you don't walk away with that, I walked away with a brand new relationship with you. You were one of the ones I walked away with from that event. We sat next to each other, dude. We talked. I loved your energy. I'm like, I got to know this guy. Who is this guy? And we just began to build a relationship. Even in Atlanta, with the lineup we have, I've said this numerous times, the magic is in the room.
Yes.
The theme for this entire weekend is we believe that businesses are built on relationships, and relationships are built in circles, not rows. We're doing this entire event in the round. We're going to have 25 to 30 tables of 10 entrepreneurs, 10 business leaders in this room. And we believe the magic is what happens in that room. John Maxwell is going to be amazing. He's speaking twice. Jesse Itzler, all the other people that we talked about. But the magic in that room is going to be with the other entrepreneurs and business owners that you're able to meet, that you walk away from that weekend in Atlanta, that you're building lifelong relationships with, that you can pick the phone up and call when you've got an issue in your business. And you can find somebody like a Daniel Gomez, who's a coach. You can find somebody like a Doug, who's in our GSD community, whose business is going to do tens of millions of dollars in revenue this year. You can find someone that owns a restaurant and walked through COVID. You can find someone who built a business from scratch and they're at $12 million in revenue this year, and their team's grown to 30 plus employees. You're going to be able to build relationships with people who have been where you want to go.
Yeah, something I want to add to that. What you're saying is because, you've been on Clubhouse, I've been on Clubhouse, but just right now, I think there's the word that people are overusing is manifest. Right? And what I mean by that is, manifest. Yes, you can manifest all you want. You can visualize all you want, but this is the thing. The connection between the inner world and the outer world is action. Let me say it again. The connection between the inner world that you're creating inside of you to believe it for yourself,
good.
It requires action. And you can sit there and meditate and say all these affirmations every day. But if you stay stuck in your little bedroom, if you stay stuck in your little apartment, in your little house, and you're not taking action, it's useless. So if you want to create that new life in 2022, that new business and grow and expand, it requires you to take action. And all those things you're manifesting inside to make that a reality in the outer world, the connecting dot is action. So go out there and take action. Get your ticket for Growth Stack Drive. You're going to meet amazing people. And not only that, after you come back from such an amazing event with all these amazing speakers, you got to implement, right? Because the worst thing we have is wasted knowledge that we never use. And it's a waste of it. It's a waste because people say, well, I know this. Well, you know it, but why aren't you doing it?
Right. That's right. Yeah. And a lot of people get overwhelmed. And like you said just a minute ago, that's why I asked, when you were in that situation, wife's got breast cancer, you're having a problem forgiving yourself, you're doing a lot of soul work. A lot of people get overwhelmed and they're like, how do I move forward? And I have a concept I talk about a lot in my book, As a Leader Grows. I talk about incremental, not monumental. Small daily disciplined decisions over time always equal monumental results. Success cannot escape you if you do the right things every single day. And it's the small things. It's not the giant leaps. It's the small, consistent, daily disciplined decisions.
Yeah. And then it goes back to this too, showing up. Like, honestly, bro, this morning, I had a fever, 99.5, and I felt achy. And the average person is going to be like, well, I don't feel good. Let me just text Ken. I ain't going to make it. And I told my wife, you know what? We're going to do the interview. So she goes, you are? I'm like, yeah. I go, I need to show up because I'm honoring you, which shows respect to you. And many people want to be respected and honored, but they're not sowing that seed. And whatever, don't deceive yourself. Whatever you sow, you're going to reap.
Yes.
And just being here and showing up today, that is giving me the opportunity to maybe meet somebody who's going to hear this podcast or see this podcast, or just God seeing it. Like, you know what? Daniel's not making excuses. I can trust him with more. And many people are wondering, why isn't my life getting better? Why isn't my business growing? Because you're not showing up. You're going back to what I said. You're making excuses. Yeah. I sound raspy, but it's okay because I'm here. And half of success is just showing up.
That's exactly right. We were on a call, and we're going to end with this. We were on a mentorship call with my good friend, Grant Cardone, a good friend and mentor. And Grant gave us homework. And he said, there's 1,200 people on the mentorship call with Grant, right? On the Zoom call. And Grant goes, I want you guys to ask 5 people this week to describe you in 1 sentence. So I text Jared and Grant, and I said, hey, I got a question. So Grant calls him, and he goes, Ken, what you got? I said, hey, G, this guy named Grant Cardone has given us homework this week. And since you and Elena are sitting there together, I would love for you to be 2 of the 5 people to describe me in 1 sentence. You know, Grant laughs a little bit, and he thinks, and he goes, Ken, you always show up. Every time I look up, you're there. You're there at my events. I see you on social media. I'm seeing you doing your own event. I'm seeing GST. Everywhere I look up, you're there. You always show up. That leans into that incremental, not monumental concept that we talk about, the principle that is transferable, regardless of what business you do, regardless if you're wanting to lose weight. It doesn't matter what it is. Small, daily disciplined decisions over time always equal monumental results. We tend to overestimate what we can do in the short term, and we tend to underestimate what we can do in the long term. It literally is a day-by-day situation where when we look up in 90 days, we look up in 6 months, we look up in a year, we don't even recognize that person in the mirror. Same exact spot you're at right now, and you've been at for a while. When a year ago you looked up at Daniel Gomez from 3 years before that, when your wife got breast cancer, you don't even recognize that man anymore. Yeah. You're a different man.
I was looking at a picture actually that somebody sent me, and they're like, man, you don't look the same anymore. They say, you look happier. I'm like, I am. I am. Everybody wants to be happy, but they don't want to do the inner work.
That's right.
And as you're going higher in life, I'll say this. As God is taking you higher and higher and higher, he's going to go deeper and deeper to deal with the things he needs to deal with. Mm-hmm. And if we don't deal with those deeper issues, it's going to hurt our business. It's going to hurt what we're trying to do. It's going to hurt it because it comes to a point where you tap out. Like John Maxwell talks about the law of the lid. You tap out. And until you decide to grow even more and deal with those issues, that's when life's going to take a turn for yourself for the better in business. So I encourage everybody listening to this right now, deal with those deeper issues. It's going to hurt. You're going to cry. I'll tell you what, I'm not ashamed to be authentic and real. Man, I've cried more, Ken, these past 4 years, like a baby, than I have the last 44 years prior to that. But I'm proud of it because I dealt with real shit. I dealt with real life. Yeah. And most of us, we don't want to deal with it. We'll rather have a drink and cover up the pain instead of dealing with it, or we'll rather eat an extra pizza or another hamburger and deal with it, or we'll rather go buy a Louis Vuitton, which we can't afford, but just to get somebody's validation. No, deal with that shit in 2022 and
That's
stop
right.
getting it's time to start getting unstuck, ladies and gentlemen.
That's it, man. growstackdrive.com/Atlanta. growstackdrive.com/Atlanta. You can grab your ticket there. We've got 4 levels of tickets: CEO, VIP, executive, and general admission. The general admission seats right now are $197. We're 3 weeks away.
Let's go. I'm excited, man. And hey, let's go. Where are we going? There's a top, baby. Come on. You got to join Ken GSD community. Come on. You have to be there. I'll tell you what, man. There's nothing better than being in a room with people who really love and care about you. And one thing I can say about my friend here, Ken Joslin, my brother, he's a real deal. I've met a lot of people in the speaking world. Many of them are flaky and fake. But dude, like, I'm just being real. Like, your heart is real. And there's people that I've met that have less followings than you, and they don't like, oh, we'll schedule a car, do this. It's like, dude, like, I understand we're all busy, but come on, man. And Ken, you're the real deal, man. And that's why people need to be at your event, because you really care.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate it. It's going to be a phenomenal thing. One last thing, I'll add this. My good friend, Gary Brecka, who's actually speaking in Atlanta as well. Gary he's one of the top biologists in the world. He works with the NFL, works with Major League Baseball. He treats a lot of A-listers, everyone in Miami, pretty much. A-Rod, J-Lo. When he did my event in Vegas in October, he just flew home from England, where he was with David and Victoria Beckham, and he was with Anthony Joshua, the former heavyweight champion of the world, the boxing champ. He's working with him on his nutrition for his comeback. One of the things Gary said in Vegas, and I love this, we'll end with this, is this. He said, authenticity is the highest frequency that we emit as human beings. And he said that authenticity is also the most sought after. People say, what's the difference between GSD and everybody else? I love my 10X family. I've got several communities that I'm a part of. What separates us, I think, is that authenticity. It really is. Spending the time that I did in full-time vocational ministry, planting and pastoring churches, it's the ability to be able to create authentic community. And we're doing that with a bunch of entrepreneurs. Everybody on that stage, with the exception of Jesse Isler, I know Jesse, but we're not friends. Everybody on that stage, I know. They're personal friends of mine. I know what they're doing in their business. I know how they live their life. I know how authentic and genuine they are, or they would not be on our stage. And it literally is going to be like in Atlanta, 3 weeks from today, it's going to be like a family reunion. It's going to be absolutely unbelievable. Dude, I love you, man. It's awesome. Almost noon. We've been going for about 45 minutes. Dude, get some rest. I'll see you in 3 weeks. And guys, thanks for joining us today on our As the Leader Grows podcast. Again, I am your host, Ken Joslin. We are passionate about helping business leaders build confidence, gain clarity, and create community. Until next time, we will see you later. Have a blessed and amazing day.